I only brought my daughter-in-law's watch in for a battery change, a 5-minute fix, or so I thought. The jeweler looked up, his face pale. Ma'am, this was reported stolen. From that tiny battery, my whole life in Portland, Maine, cracked open. The house deed mysteriously changed hands. My account started bleeding. And my daughter-in-law, it turned out, had a lot of names. I may be 61, but I remember every fake signature. My name is Sylvia Marchant. I am 61 years old. And for 38 of those years, I was a bookkeeper at Seafair Looms, right here in Portland, Maine. The looms themselves are mostly quiet now. The old brick mills turned into breweries and condos, but the ledgers I kept were always balanced, down to the penny. You don't spend a lifetime making sure every column adds up and every entry is true without that precision becoming part of your blood. I am a widow. My husband, Frank, has been gone for 5 years, and the house he built for us has felt too large ever since. It felt large, that is, until 6 months ago. My son, Dylan, who is 39, and his wife, Kendall, who is 34, moved in. It was meant to be temporary. Kendall, Dylan explained, had been let go from her high-powered marketing job. A restructuring, she'd called it, waving a perfectly manicured hand, her voice breezy. They just needed a place to land for a few months, just until they got back on their feet. I said yes. Of course. I said yes. Dylan is my son, and the house was quiet. But the quiet I knew was replaced by a different kind of silence, a tense one. The changes started small. I came downstairs one morning to find an electrician rewiring the kitchen outlets. They were getting loose. Mum, Dylan said, not looking up from his phone. Kendall was worried about a fire hazard. A week later, I came home from the market to find a new deadbolt on the front door, a digital one, with a keypad. Kendall was beaming. Isn't it great? No more fumbling for keys? She showed me the 4-digit code. I hadn't been asked. I was informed. My old brass lock, the one Frank installed, was gone. It was a soft, smiling kind of control, but it was control nonetheless. This morning, Kendall caught me by the door as I was grabbing my coat. Sylvia, honey, you're a lifesaver, she said, unclasping the watch from her wrist. It was a beautiful piece, steel and gold, delicate but substantial. It looked very expensive for someone who was supposedly between opportunities. The battery died. She sighed, frustration pulling at her features. I've got that webinar in 20 minutes. You're going downtown anyway, aren't you? Could you possibly drop this at Harborside Jewelers? Just a simple battery change? It should be quick. She pressed it into my hand. It was heavier than it looked. Of course, I said. Harborside Jewelers is an old Portland institution. A fifth, the owner, has been behind that counter since before the looms closed. He greeted me warmly. Just a battery, Sylvia. For my daughter-in-law, a fifth. She's in a hurry. He smiled, took the watch to his bench, and snapped the back open. I browsed the pearl earrings while I waited. It took him perhaps 3 minutes. But when he went to log the repair into his computer, he stopped. I watched him lean closer to his screen. He typed something, then typed it again. He looked down at the serial number engraved on the watch casing, then back at the monitor. His shoulders tightened. When he turned back to me, the polite customer service smile was gone. His face was pale. Sylvia, he said, his voice dropping so low I had to step closer. I cannot give this back to you. The air in the shop suddenly felt thin. What do you mean? A fifth, is it broken? No. I ran the serial number for the service log. This watch. It's on an insurance database. It was reported stolen. Stolen? The word landed wrong, like a key in the wrong lock. My first instinct wasn't panic. It was process. The bookkeeper in me took over. I reached into my purse and pulled out the small, spiral-bound notebook and the good rollerball pen I always carry. May I see the report? I asked. He turned the monitor. It was an alert, flagged by an insurance firm based out of Rhode Island, reported 6 months ago. I calmly wrote down the serial number. I wrote down the name of the insurance company. I noted the date of the report. Thank you. A fifth, I said, my voice steady. You must do what the report requires. They'll have to contact the police, he said, looking relieved I wasn't making a scene. I left the watch with him and walked out into the sharp, salty air of the waterfront. When I got home, Kendall was in the kitchen, blending a smoothie that sounded like a jet engine. She clicked it off when she saw me. All set, that was fast. I placed my purse on the counter. Kendall, where did you get that watch? Her smile faltered, just for a second. What do you mean I've had it for ages? Why? I took it to Harborside. A fifth ran the serial number. It's listed as stolen. Kendall, reported out of Rhode Island. She burst out laughing. It was a sharp, brittle sound. Oh my God, you're kidding. Stolen. That's insane. I bought it on Marketplace ages ago. Some woman in Boston was selling off her cheating husband's gifts. It must be some bizarre mistake. I looked past her, toward the den, where Dylan was pretending to read the paper. He was holding it so high I could only see his knuckles. He didn't say a word. He didn't meet my eyes. The jeweler kept it, I said quietly. He's required to report it to the insurance company and the police. The colour drained from Kendall's face, replaced by a flush of anger. You let him. Sylvia, that was an expensive watch. You've just created a massive problem over a stupid battery. Dinner was silent. Dylan focused on pushing his food around his plate. The only sound was the clink of silverware. The fog rolled in thick off the bay, and the mournful groan of the Casco Bay foghorn echoed through the streets. It was a sound that had always meant home, meant safety. Tonight, it felt like a warning. Later, I was in the living room, trying to knit, but my hands kept missing stitches. I heard Kendall on the enclosed porch, her voice a low, urgent whisper. Not acceptable. The appraisal has to be higher. I froze. I don't care what the comps are. We have to leverage the zoning. Yes, we can close before winter. He'll sign. Close what I stood up and walked toward the porch door. She saw my shadow through the glass and immediately brightened, her voice changing. Okay, thanks so much. Chad talk soon. She hung up and turned to me, smiling. Just an old colleague, networking, you know how it is. I looked at her, at the bright, false smile and the eyes that didn't match. The fog was pressing against the glass, blurring the world outside. My world, inside, felt just as blurred, just as cold. I knew one thing with the certainty of a balanced ledger. Kendall hadn't bought that watch on Marketplace, and she wasn't just networking. I went to bed, but I didn't sleep. I just kept thinking, why was my daughter-in-law, who supposedly had no job, wearing a stolen watch from Rhode Island? And what Exactly. Was she planning to sell? The call came the next morning. It was a crisp, professional voice that identified himself as Mr. Verrill, an investigator with the underwriting firm from Rhode Island. He did not want to discuss the matter over the phone. He asked if I could meet him back at Harborside Jewelers in 1 hour. I was there in 20 minutes. Afif, the owner, looked worried. He showed me to his small back office, where Mr. Verrill was already seated, a slim leather briefcase resting on his knees. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40. But he had the tired eyes of someone who spends all day looking at the fine print of disasters. Mrs. Marchant, he began, skipping the pleasantries. We appreciate you coming in. This watch, he motioned to the tagged evidence bag on the desk, is not just a single stolen item. It's part of an active, high-value claim. I remained silent. I have found that in accounting, you learn the most by letting the other person fill the silence. It was reported stolen 6 months ago from a private residence in Newport during a charity fundraiser. The claimant, the actual owner, is not named Kendall Reeves. Newport, a fundraiser. The discrepancy between that and Kendall's story, bought it on Marketplace, was a bright, red deficit in my mental ledger. I see, I said. Verrill leaned forward slightly. Which brings us to the difficult part. Mrs. Marchant, how did this watch, stolen from an exclusive event in Rhode Island, end up in your possession here in Portland? The implication was clear. He thought I was part of it. The fence. The naive old woman. My spine stiffened. My daughter-in-law, Kendall Reeves, is living with me temporarily. She said the battery was dead and asked me to have it changed while I ran errands. He raised a skeptical eyebrow. That's convenient. I am not a liar. Mr. Verrill. I took my phone from my purse, unlocked it, and found the message thread from yesterday morning. I placed the phone on his desk. She texted me. You can read it. He picked it up. Can you take my watch to Harborside? Battery died. You are a lifesaver. He read it aloud, his tone flat. He looked up. Afif, who had been hovering by the door, stepped in. And Mr. Verrill, as I told you, our counter camera faces the door. It recorded Mrs. Marchant handing me the watch and me giving her the service ticket. The timestamp is 9:07 a.m. yesterday. The suspicion in Verrill's eyes didn't vanish, but it was replaced by calculation. He photographed my phone screen with his own. This is very helpful. Mrs. Marchant, we will likely need to speak with your daughter-in-law. I suspect you will, I replied, collecting my phone. When I returned home, the tension hit me the moment I opened the new, keyless lock. Kendall was in the kitchen, furiously wiping down the already spotless granite counters. Dylan was standing by the sink, his shoulders hunched, looking trapped. Well, Kendall snapped, her voice high and tight. Did you get my watch back? No, I said, setting my purse on the counter. I just finished a meeting with an insurance investigator named Mr. Verrill. The watch was stolen from a fundraiser in Newport. He is handling it now. The colour drained from her face. Then, just as quickly, it returned as a dark, angry flush. She advanced on me, the dishcloth crushed in her hand. You what? You talked to insurance, Sylvia. What is wrong with you? I told you it was a simple mistake from Marketplace. You were supposed to be discreet, get the battery, and leave. Now you've involved strangers, probably put me on some list. How could you be so naive? The audacity of it, the immediate reversal, took my breath away. She was painting me as the problem, the interfering old woman. Kendall, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. They know the name of the real owner. Lying about Marketplace won't fix this. Mum, Dylan finally spoke, stepping between us, his hands half raised in a gesture of peace. Mum, please, just calm down. Kendall is upset. It's just a watch. Let's not make a big deal out of this. We can handle it. He's handling it. Dylan, I said, looking at my son. The next step is the police. Kendall threw the dish rag into the sink with a wet smack. This is your fault, she hissed at me before storming up the stairs. The sound of her slamming the bedroom door vibrated through the floor. Dylan, after a long, defeated sigh, followed her. I was left alone in the kitchen, the silence buzzing. I went to the mail slot by the door to sort the day's delivery. Bills, junk, and the monthly statement for the house's operating account. The account Frank and I had used for 30 years to pay the mortgage, the taxes, the utilities. I slit it open. I always check the summary. My stomach dropped. The balance was thousands of dollars lower than it should have been. I scanned the itemized list, my old bookkeeping skills taking over. Utilities, normal. But the payments there was a charge for $3,000 2 weeks prior, and another one for $2,000, $500 just last week. The payee was listed only as K.R. Legal Services, and the total withdrawals for the month were astronomical. My hands were shaking. I looked back at the pile of mail. Tucked inside a catalogue was a thin, official-looking postcard from the U.S. Postal Service. I almost tossed it. It was addressed to Resident. I read the first line. This is to confirm that a request to forward mail for the following names at this address has been processed. My name, Sylvia Marchant, was listed, and below it, Kendall Ray. Ray, not Reeves. The mail was being forwarded to a new address, a post office box in South Portland. They weren't just checking my mail, they were actively diverting it, ensuring they saw the statements before I did. I moved, almost on autopilot, to the study, to the heavy oak filing cabinet where Frank kept every important document. I pulled open the bottom drawer, my knuckles scraping the wood. Property, deeds, title. I pulled the file for the house. The original deed was there. Safe. In my name and Frank's. But on top of it, slid just inside the folder, was a new document I had never seen before. A quitclaim deed, certified. It was a copy, the notary stamp a faint, blurry circle in the corner. It added Dylan's name to the title of my house. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely read the date. It was from 3 weeks ago. I looked at the signature line. My signature. It wasn't my signature. The slant was wrong. The loop on the S was too round, too practiced. It was a forgery, a clumsy one, if you knew what to look for. And I, Sylvia Marchant, always knew what to look for. Kendall's whispered phone call echoed in my ears. The appraisal has to be higher, we can close before winter. He'll sign, Dylan, would sign, because she, Kendall, had already made me sign. I locked the study door. I took out my phone. I began, with methodical, cold precision, to photograph everything. The bank statement showing K.R. Legal Services, the mail forwarding confirmation card, every single page of the fraudulent quitclaim deed. I opened a new text message. Una Gallagher, my neighbor for 20 years. A woman who knows how to keep a secret and how to use a shovel. I attached the images. My message was simple. Una, I am sending these to you for safekeeping. Do not delete them. Please confirm you have them. I am in trouble. My phone buzzed 2 minutes later. Got them. Sill. My safe. What do you need? I took a deep breath, the scent of the old paper and Frank's study filling my lungs. The pin had popped the balloon. The quiet ruin was no longer quiet. The next 48 hours. I did not sleep. I worked. I pulled 6 months of statements for every account. I had the house operating account, my personal checking, my retirement savings, even the old utility bills. I spread them across the dining room table, the one Frank built, and I opened a new ledger book. In the old days at Seafair Looms, we called this a forensic audit. Now, it was just survival. I created columns, date, payee, amount, and a final column, purpose. The KR legal services fees were the largest, but they were not alone. There was a charge for $500 to Home Gutter Solutions in August. Our gutters were cleaned in May. I had paid the invoice myself. There was an invoice for $900 from Portland Electrical, which was not the name of the company that had rewired the outlets. I cross-referenced the utility bills. The power and water usage had not increased, despite having 2 extra adults in the house. There were no major repairs. There were no new appliances. There was only a steady, systematic drain, all disguised as mundane household upkeep, all siphoning money from my accounts. I called Una. Una, I need a lawyer, someone who specializes in this. In what? Sylvia. In families that steal? Una was quiet for a beat. You're meeting Tasha Whitaker tomorrow, 10 a.m. She's not a hugger. She's a fighter. Tasha Whitaker's office was spare, clean, and overlooked the harbour, but her window was pragmatic, not scenic. She was a black woman in her 40s with a laser-focused gaze. She did not waste time on sympathy. She wasted it on action. I laid out my ledger, the bank statements, and the photo of the quitclaim deed. She studied the deed first. This is a bad forgery, she said, not as a compliment, but as an observation. The notary seal is blurry. The name, John P. Smith, is too generic. I'll wager his commission doesn't exist or was reported stolen. This is our first priority. She picked up her phone. Get me the registry of deeds, she ordered into it. She explained to me. We are filing a Ellis pendens, a notice. It's a red flag for any title company that this property's ownership is in dispute. It freezes any attempt to sell or leverage the house until this is resolved. They wanted to close before winter. They just ran into a blizzard. She hung up and turned to me. Now, the rest. What else has changed? The locks, I said. A new digital deadbolt. Get me the invoice, Tasha said. I went home and called the locksmith company Kendall had used. I was polite. I was just Sylvia, the homeowner, trying to get a receipt for my files. The clerk was helpful. The invoice, she said, was in the name of Kendall Reeves. And how was that paid? I asked, my pen hovering over my notebook. It looks like a virtual credit card. Ma'am? A one-time use number. Kendall was covering her tracks, not just stealing, but building a fortress of anonymity around her actions. My next stop was Harbourside Jewellers, a fifth, looking sombre, handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a formal, typed letter on his company letterhead, detailing the watch, its serial number, and the exact match to the insurance theft report he had received. One more piece of paper. One more weapon. I brought the new evidence to Tasha. She took the jeweler's statement and nodded grimly. Good. I was on the phone with Mr. Verrill's firm in Rhode Island. This is bigger than one watch. It's part of an open investigation into a string of high-value thefts from charity events in New England. They've been trying to find the inside person or the fence for months. Your daughter-in-law just walked their prized possession into a jewelry store. When I got home, the house was empty. A small digital audio recorder I'd ordered online was waiting in my mailbox. I read the Maine state laws on recording. It was complicated, but my living room was a common area. I placed the recorder on the high bookshelf, behind a row of Frank's old history books, and turned it on. Kendall's phone calls were no longer whispered. They were bold. That night, she sat in the kitchen, her voice ringing with confidence, discussing our property. The title is clean now, I heard her say, her voice captured perfectly. We're joint. We can move on the HELOC by Friday. Yes. The house is in prime condition for a cash-out refi. The appraisal is just a formality. Dylan was barely there. He wasn't drinking. I would have almost preferred that. This was different. He was out at all hours, attending meetings that Kendall had arranged. He came home with glossy pamphlets and a new, brittle vocabulary. He spoke of decentralized finance, yield farming, and the new digital frontier. Kendall had not just forged my name, she had colonized my son's mind, convincing him that a lifetime of his mother's careful savings was just lazy money waiting to be activated in a crypto scheme I was certain was a dead end. He was gone, trapped in her web of quick, easy money. Tasha's voice was firm on our nightly check-in call. Sylvia, you have a solid case, but you are living with the people you are building it against. Do you feel safe? I am not afraid, I said. That's not what I asked. Be prepared. Pack a small bag, toothbrush, change of clothes, your original deed, your passport. Keep it in your car or at Una's. If you feel the slightest risk, you walk out that door and you do not look back. That night, after they were both asleep, I went to my closet. I pulled down the small overnight bag I used to take to the looms for inventory week. I packed a sweater, toiletries, my spare glasses, and the original, untainted deed to my house. I added the USB drive where I had saved copies of the audio files, the bank statements, and the forged deed. I zipped it, walked it through the dark, quiet yard to Una's, and left it just inside her back door. As we'd arranged, I had become a refugee in my own home, a bookkeeper preparing for the final, painful audit. You do not build a life in Portland for 61 years without building alliances. The next morning, my kitchen, which had become a hostile territory, was reclaimed. Una Gallagher sat at my table, her presence a solid, reassuring ballast. With her was Maeve Donnelly. Maeve is 70, retired from the Port Authority Police, and still carries the absolute authority of someone who has seen everything the tides can wash in. She looked at my ledger, my photos, and my small audio recorder with a professional eye. First, Maeve said, her voice like gravel. This recorder is fine for the living room, but your phone is better. It's always with you. And stop taking notes in that spiral book. It looks like a diary. Start a log. Date. Time. Who was present. What was said. Quote it. If Kendall moves a chair, You note the time. It's not a narrative. Sylvia, it's a report. When you show a judge, they see facts, not feelings. And the tech side, Una added. My nephew, Rafi, is here. He's at the library, volunteering with the computer literacy program. Rafi Ortega was maybe 25, with a quick, quiet energy. He looked at my phone, my laptop, and the router Kendall had insisted on installing. She's smart, Mrs. Marchant, Rafi said softly, his fingers flying across my phone's settings. This new router, she probably has admin access. She could be monitoring your traffic. And this Kendall Ray P.O. box, she's using an alias. That's a huge flag. He spent an hour locking down my devices. He installed a new, secure cloud backup. Anything you photograph, any audio you record, he explained. It will now automatically upload to a server she cannot access. Even if she destroys your phone, the data is safe. I'll also set up an alert. If anyone tries to access your accounts from a new device, you'll know instantly. My quiet army was assembling. Tasha had the legal front, Maeve, the procedural, Rafi, the digital, and Una, the groundwork. About that notary, Una said, sipping her tea. John P. Smith. Tasha was right. I know a woman who works at the registry. She ran the name. The commission for John P. Smith at that address was reported stolen, over a year ago. The stamp Kendall used on your deed is fraudulent. Full stop. A new file, a new piece of evidence. I logged it, just as Maeve had instructed. Date November 3rd, time 10:14 a.m. Witness Una Gallagher. Fact notary stamp confirmed stolen. The phone rang. It was Mr. Verrill, the insurance investigator. Mrs. Marchant. His voice was crisp. I have something you need to see. Can you meet me at my local office in 1 hour? His office was a nondescript building in South Portland. He didn't waste time. He slid a grainy 8x10 photograph across the desk. It was a candid shot from a crowded party, people in tuxedos and gowns, holding champagne. This is from the fundraiser in Newport, he said. He pointed to the background, past the main group, to a woman standing near a server's entrance. Her back was mostly turned, but she was looking over her shoulder. The focus was blurry, but the profile was unmistakable. The line of her jaw, the way she held her head. It was Kendall. We missed her the first time, Verrill said. She wasn't on the guest list. She wasn't staff. She was a ghost. Until you gave us her name. I returned to Rafi, who was still at my kitchen table, monitoring my network. Rafi, I said, I need you to search for another name. Not Kendall Reeves, not Kendall Ray. Try Kira. Kira Lane. It was a guess. A fragment from an old college story Dylan had told, about a girl he knew. Rafi's fingers moved. He was quiet for 5 minutes. Then 10. Mrs. Marchant, he said, turning his laptop toward me. I found her. Kira Lane. She has an active rental agreement, a storage unit, Apex Storage, just off the highway. He continued, his voice hardening. I ran a search on that name combined with the P.O. box. Kira Lane is the name she used to set up the mail forwarding. And the virtual credit cards, they're all registered to Kira Lane. Tasha had this information within the hour. By 3 p.m. She had combined Verrill's photograph, the stolen notary report, and Rafi's discovery of the storage unit into an emergency motion. Tasha, I said on the phone, what does this mean? It means, she replied, that we now petition for a temporary civil protection order based on the forgery, the financial drain, and the alias. We can argue you are a vulnerable adult being actively defrauded. This order can, among other things, bar her from accessing your accounts and potentially even remove her from the home. And Dylan? My voice was thin. He's an adult. Sylvia. He has to choose. Is he a victim or an accomplice right now? The law will see him as both. I found Dylan that evening in the den. The house was quiet. Kendall was out, at another meeting. I didn't raise my voice. I simply placed the evidence on the coffee table in front of him. The bank statement with the KR legal services fee, the photograph of the fraudulent deed. She forged my name. Dylan. He stared at the papers. He picked up the deed. His hands, the hands I had held when he was a boy, were shaking. Mum, this can't be right. There must be an explanation. Kendall. She's just trying to help us get secure. She's protecting the assets. Protecting whose assets? Dylan. She is stealing my house. From me. From you. No. He stood up. The paper crumpled in his fist. You're wrong. You're stressed. You're lonely. You're trying to push her away. She warned me you would do this. He was defending her. He was looking at black and white proof of a crime and choosing to believe the lie. He threw the papers back on the table. Just leave it alone. Mom, you're going to ruin everything. He walked out. I sat there for a long time. Tasha called me at 8 p.m. Sylvia, the storage unit. Verrill and the local police got an emergency warrant based on the connection to the Newport theft. They just opened it. I waited. It wasn't full of furniture, Tasha said, her voice grim. It was full of boxes, dozens of them, all containing brand new, sealed-in plastic gift bags. The official ones provided by the corporate sponsor for the Newport fundraiser. The ones that never made it to the guests. The pieces clicked into place. The watch wasn't a one-off theft. It was part of a coordinated heist. Kendall wasn't just an opportunist. She was a professional. It's time, Sylvia, Tasha said. We have 2 tracks. The civil track, which I am handling, is to protect your property and get the protection order. That happens tomorrow. The second track, that one just started. The criminal track. She's not just your daughter-in-law anymore. She's a person of interest in a multi-state felony. The warrant for the storage unit turned Kendall from a domestic problem into a cornered animal. And cornered animals are predictable they attack. It happened 2 days later. It was late afternoon. The sky that flat, cold grey that promises an early dark. I was in the kitchen, logging the mail, when I saw the blue and red lights flash across the front windows. A Portland police cruiser was parked in my driveway. My heart didn't pound. It simply turned to ice. I opened the new digital lock before they could knock. There were 2 officers. One was young, his face taut with procedural seriousness. The other was older, a woman with a weary, appraising look. Mrs. Sylvia Marchant, the woman asked. I am, I said. Ma'am, we received an anonymous call. A neighbour reported seeing you removing items from a nearby property and carrying them into your garage. Can we take a look? My blood ran cold. A neighbour. Una wouldn't. Maeve wouldn't. It was a lie. Of course, officer, I said, my voice perfectly level. I stepped back to let them in. Kendall and Dylan appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by the new voices. Kendall's face was a mask of practiced, wifely concern. Dylan just looked terrified. "Mum, what's happening?" he asked. "The police are here." "Dylan?" "They received a call about me." I led the officers through the kitchen to the attached garage. I pulled the chain for the overhead light. The garage was cluttered, as it always was. Frank's old tools, gardening supplies, a stack of snow tires, and sitting on top of a stack of old newspapers, as if placed there for display, was a single, pristine, sealed-in plastic gift bag. The white logo of the Newport charity fundraiser gleamed under the bare bulb. The young officer's eyes locked onto it. "Ma'am," he said, his hand moving toward his belt. "What is that?" "I have no idea," I said truthfully. "I have never seen it before in my life." The female officer looked from the bag to me. "The anonymous caller said you were seen carrying it. This item matches the description of stolen goods from a multi-state felony investigation." "Mom." Dylan was at the door now, his voice cracking. "What is that? Why do you have that?" Kendall was right behind him. "Oh, Sylvia," she breathed, her hand flying to her mouth. "No, you didn't." The frame-up was clean. It was perfect. I was the old woman, confused, alone, caught red-handed with the loot. But Kendall had forgotten something. She'd forgotten that I was a bookkeeper. I don't just balance the books. I check the receipts. "Officer," I said, turning my back on the bag. I pulled my phone from my pocket. When Rafi Ortega secured my digital life, he also activated the motion sensor camera on my doorbell. It covers the driveway and the front door, but it also has a clear, angled view of the garage side door. I opened the security app. "You said the call was anonymous. Can you tell me what time it came in?" The female officer hesitated, then said, "Approximately 25 minutes ago." "How convenient," I said. I tapped my phone screen. "Here is the footage from 28 minutes ago. Please, watch." I held out the phone. The timestamp was clear in the corner of the high-definition video. It showed the side door of the garage opening. It showed Kendall, looking over her shoulder, carrying that exact white gift bag. She slipped inside. 19 seconds later, she slipped back out, empty-handed, and shut the door quietly. The younger officer's face hardened. The female officer looked at Kendall, who was now staring at my phone. Her mask of concern shattered, replaced by pure, cold rage. "And," I continued, "my friend Maeve Donnelly, a retired Port Authority officer, is a data expert. She's been helping me. I am certain that if you pinged Kendall's phone, you would find it placed her right here, in this garage, at that exact time." There was a heavy silence. "Mom, what is this?" Dylan said, turning to Kendall. "The camera. You were in the garage." Kendall saw the trap closing. She pivoted instantly. Of course I was. I was cleaning. I found that thing, tucked in her car. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't want her to get in trouble. So I moved it to the garage to figure out what to do. I was protecting her. It was a brilliant lie. Quick, plausible, if you didn't know the facts. "Kendall?" Dylan said, his voice pleading. "You told the officers she brought it in?" "No. They said that I was just confused." "Ma'am," the female officer said to me, her voice now respectful. "This is complicated. We're going to take this item as evidence, and we're going to file a report. A very detailed report." "They didn't arrest me." They didn't even read me my rights. They took the bag. They took my statement. And they left. The moment the cruiser backed out of the driveway, I turned to Dylan. He was looking at his wife, his face ashen. It was the first time he had ever seen, with his own eyes, Kendall construct a lie to a person in uniform. He had seen the forgery, but this was different. This was live. She tried to have me arrested. Dylan, I said quietly. No, Kendall snapped, her voice shaking with adrenaline. I saved you. They would have found it anyway. I didn't argue. I just walked past them, went to the study, and locked the door. I called Tasha. She planted evidence, I said. And the police have it all on video. Tasha was silent for a moment. Then, I heard her smile through the phone. Good. That's not just a breach of trust. Sylvia, that's witness tampering. That's spoliation. She just gave us the emergency order. She's proven she's a clear and present danger to you and the case. I'm filing an ex parte motion tonight to have the house sealed, not just a lis pendens, but a hard freeze. The next day, the insurance company made its move. Mr. Betrayal, seeing his case expanding, put out a press release. The Newport theft, the stolen charity items. A $5,000 reward was offered for any information leading to the recovery of the remaining items. It was in the Portland paper. It was on the local news. My quiet battle was suddenly very, very public. Kendall and Dylan were locked in their room all day, their arguments a low, vicious murmur through the walls. I thought I had a day to breathe. I thought Tasha's hard freeze would stop everything. Then, at 4 p.m., my phone rang. It was an unknown number, a slick, professional voice. Hi, is this Sylvia Marchant? This is Brad with Portside Realty. I'm just calling to confirm our final walkthrough for this Friday, before the open house on Saturday. We are so excited. This listing is going to fly. Kendall has been a dream to work with. Getting this ready. I looked at the phone. My hand was steady. An open house. She wasn't trying to forge a deed anymore. She wasn't trying to get a loan. She was already selling my house. I held the phone to my ear, the realtor's slick voice buzzing against my skin. Brad, I said, my voice deliberately warm. Portside Realty. How wonderful. Yes. Saturday at 1 p.m. is perfect. We're very excited to show the house. Thank you for calling. I hung up before he could say another word. The silence in my kitchen was heavy. I immediately dialed Tasha. She's doing it, I said. No preamble. She's hired a fake realty company named Portside, and they've scheduled an open house for Saturday. Tasha's intake of breath was sharp. She's accelerating. The Eli's pendants must have spooked her. She knows she can't get a loan, so she's pivoting to a fraudulent cash sale. She'll try to take a deposit and disappear. I know, I said. So we're going to let her. Sylvia? Tasha warned. Tasha. She's already committed the crime. The forgery is done. The theft is done. The attempted framing is done. Now she's inviting the public into my home to commit fraud. I am inviting you in to watch her do it. Tasha was quiet, and I knew she was thinking, processing. It's a trap, Sylvia, for her, or for you. It's a stage, I corrected, and we are setting it. The plan came together over the next 24 hours. A quiet, precise mobilization. Rafi came first. He installed 2 high-fidelity microphones, the size of a quarter. One went into the living room, tucked onto the mantel. The second was placed in the kitchen, beneath the cabinet overhang. They were wired to a secure cloud server, untouchable by Kendall. "She'll be pitching in these 2 rooms," Raffi said. "We'll get every word." "The notice?" Tasha instructed. I typed it myself, on my old IBM typewriter. The letters, stark and official. Notice. All activity on these premises is subject to audio and video recording for security purposes. I posted one on the front door and another in the main entryway. They were impossible to miss, and they made everything that followed perfectly legal. While Raffi worked, he also set the final digital tripwire. "I've flagged your parcel ID at the county registry. Tasha," he explained over the speakerphone, "if any filing against this property hits the system a sale, a lien, anything your office gets an instant email alert." Mr. Verrill, the insurance investigator, was eager to join. "She's holding an open house," he'd said, his voice crackling with interest. "I'll be there. I'm a cash buyer from Boston, looking to flip a property. I'll be wearing a body camera." Maeve, my ex-cop neighbor, took the surveillance position. "I'm not coming in," she declared. "I'll be parked across the street, 2 houses down. I'll have binoculars and a long-lens camera. She'll be looking for her contacts, her escape route, or her partners. I'll get the plates." Una, my public witness, activated her network. "Oh, this is rich," she cackled. "I'm telling the PTA list that your awful daughter-in-law is trying to bully you into selling. We'll have a dozen concerned neighbors stopping by. We just want to see the house one last time, for old time's sake. We'll be witnesses." My role was the simplest. I was the grieving widow, confused and pushed aside. While they planned, I went to my study. I pulled out my portfolio. Inside, I placed the original 1989 deed, the one with my name and Frank's, the paper thick and real. I placed the printout from the state registry, showing the notary stamp she used had been stolen in March of 2023. I placed my ledger, showing the KR Legal Services withdrawals. I was ready. Saturday arrived, cold and bright. Kendall was electric, a blur of motion. She had staged the house, hiding my life, my photos, my books, my knitting, and replacing them with cold, grey pillows and generic art. At 12:45 p.m., Dylan arrived. He got out of his car and stopped dead on the sidewalk. He was staring at the sign hammered into his childhood lawn. Portside Realty. The logo was a slick, anonymous blue wave. He knew the realtors in this town. He knew this wasn't one of them. He looked at the sign, then at the house, his face a mask of profound, sickening confusion. He knew something was deeply wrong, but he was too far in to turn back. He walked inside, his shoulders slumped. At 1 p.m, the guests arrived. Una and her concerned neighbors came first, a wave of sympathetic looks for me and cold shoulders for Kendall. Then Mr. Verrill, in a sharp blazer, playing his role to perfection. "Great bones," he said loudly. "Good potential." Kendall lit up. This was her mark. She stood in the center of the living room, the microphone 5 feet away, and began her performance. "Thank you all for coming," she projected, her voice smooth and confident. "As you can see, the house is in turnkey condition, but the real value," she leaned in conspiratorially, "is the zoning. This location is a goldmine for a high-end Airbnb. You could clear 4, even 5,000 a month. Easy." The current owner is moving to a retirement facility, so we're looking for a quick, all-cash close. She was selling me, my house, and a fantasy, all in one breath. She handed out glossy folders. I took one. It was a property disclosure form. I read it. Roof replaced. 2023. It was from 2010. Electrical fully upgraded. 2024. A lie. Foundation sealed. A lie. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text message. From Maeve. I didn't open it. I knew what it was. It was the signal. I looked up, through the living room window, past Kendall's triumphant smile, to the street. A black, late-model SUV with Massachusetts plates had parked directly across from Maeve. The door opened. A man in a dark, expensive overcoat got out. He was tall. He ignored the open house sign. He walked up the stone path, his eyes fixed on Kendall. It was the man from the blurry fundraiser photo, the one Verrill had pointed out. The ghost who wasn't on the guest list. He was here. The real buyer had arrived. Kendall's professional smile tightened when the man from the black SUV entered. He was not a buyer. He was a complication. "Brad, this is a private investor," she said, her voice suddenly strained. The man ignored the realtor, ignored the neighbors, and walked directly to her. He moved with a heavy, dangerous confidence. "You've been busy," he said. His voice was low. "The house is moving," Kendall replied. "All business. The asset is liquid. I'm not here about the house." He reached into his overcoat. He did not pull out a checkbook. He pulled out a small, dark blue velvet box. "I'm here for this. Check the merchandise." He flipped it open. Inside, on a bed of white satin, was a sapphire ring, enormous, circled in diamonds. He handed it to her. Mr. Verrill, my cash buyer, shifted slightly, his shoulder angled toward them. His button camera was recording every word. Kendall's hand, the one with the soft skin, trembled as she took the ring. She inspected the inside of the band. "Is the serial number from the same set?" the man demanded. "Yes," she whispered, her eyes wide. "It matches." "Good. Is the source secure?" Kendall nodded, trying to regain her composure. She gestured with her chin toward me, standing in the hallway. "Completely. The owner is confused. She'll sign anything I put in front of her. We'll have the full amount soon." I watched my son. Dylan heard it. He heard his wife, the woman he defended, call his mother confused and a tool to be used. She'll sign anything. The blood drained from his face. He went white. He looked sick. He stared at Kendall as if she were a complete stranger, a monster he had invited into his home. He finally saw. It was time. I stepped out of the hallway. "The owner is not confused. Kendall." My voice was not loud. It was sharp. It cut through the polite murmur of the open house. Every head turned. The man from the SUV froze. Kendall spun around, her face a mask of sudden, cold panic. "Sylvia, what are you doing?" She hissed. "Get back in the study. The adults are talking." "We are," I agreed. "We're auditing the books." I held up the single sheet of paper from my portfolio. "We can start with the watch, the one you gave me. Serial number 92537, reported stolen from Newport, Rhode Island." The man's eyes shot to the door. "And I'd wager," I continued, my voice calm, "that the ring you're holding is on the same insurance claim, Case file 747B, filed by Amalgamated Underwriters. The man did not speak. He did not run. He simply turned, handed the ring box back to Kendall as if it were poison, and walked. He was out the front door in 3 seconds flat. My phone was in my hand. "Maeve," I said quietly. "He's moving. Black SUV. Massachusetts plates. Got him." Maeve's voice crackled back instantly. "Plates are logged and sent. Verrill has the feed." The room was absolutely silent. Kendall was breathing in short, shallow gasps. Then, she turned on me. "You!" she shrieked, her voice cracking. "You set me up! You old bitch, you're trying to ruin me because you can't stand that Dylan loves me. You're making it all up. You're senile." She whirled on the room of neighbors. "She's lying. She's obsessed with controlling this house, and she hates me. She's confused." Una Gallagher stepped forward, her arms crossed over her chest. "Is that right, Kendall?" Una's voice boomed. "Because I, for one, saw you carry at least 5 of those white event boxes from your car into this house last month. I asked if you needed help. You told me it was just marketing materials." Another parent from the group, a man I recognized from the market, chimed in. "I saw it too. On a Tuesday. You were stacking them in the garage. My wife and I thought it was strange." The neighbors were no longer neighbors. They were a chorus. They were a wall. Kendall looked from Una to the others, her face trapped. She turned to Dylan, her last, desperate card. "Dylan, tell them. Tell them she's lying." Dylan just stared at her. His face was pale, empty. He said nothing at all. Ding-dong. The sound of the doorbell was like a gunshot. Kendall jumped. Everyone froze. I walked to the front door, the one with the digital lock she had installed, and I opened it. The female police officer from the frame-up was there, and the young male officer. Behind them, 2 detectives in suits. "Good afternoon. Mrs. Marchant?" the officer said, her voice strictly formal. "We're here, as coordinated with Mr. Verrill, to follow up on the investigation." Mr. Verrill, the cash buyer, stepped forward from the living room and held up his badge. "Investigator Verrill, Amalgamated, Detectives. This is Kendall Reeves. She is a person of interest in a multi-state felony. She just confirmed possession of stolen property." Kendall saw the net close. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She looked at the police, at Verrill, at me. Then, her thumbs began to fly. She grabbed her phone from her back pocket, her face a mask of pure, desperate concentration, deleting, wiping, erasing. One of the detectives stepped forward. "Ma'am, I'll need to take that phone." "It's fine," I said quietly. Kendall looked up at me, her eyes narrowed in confusion. "It's fine," I repeated. Raffi set up an automatic cloud backup. She can delete all she wants. The originals are already safe. The detective took the phone from her unresisting hand. Her shoulders slumped. It was a complete, silent, final defeat. In the chaos, as the police began to speak, as Verrill secured the ring box, as Una quietly guided her friends out, I looked across the room. I met Dylan's eyes. He was crying. Silent tears ran down his face. He didn't move. He just looked at me. And for the first time in a year, I saw my son. His eyes said everything. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mum." The chaos of the open house did not last long. It was not a messy arrest. It was a quiet, professional removal. Kendall was escorted out, not in handcuffs, but by two detectives who simply walked on either side of her. Her lawyer, the one paid for by K.R. Legal Services, was, I was told, unreachable. The following days were a blur of depositions and affidavits. We did not go to a grand courtroom. Not yet. We met in Tasha Whitaker's conference room, a sterile space of glass and grey carpet, with Mr. Verrill, the insurance investigator, and a lawyer from the Cumberland County District Attorney's Office. It was here that the full unmasking happened. It was not a dramatic reveal. It was a methodical stacking of paper, one fact upon another, until the weight was undeniable. Tasha began. She laid out 3 sets of documents in a clean row. "We have 3 identities," she said, her voice crisp. "First, Kendall Reeves, the wife of Dylan Marchant. Second, Kira Lane, the name used to rent the Apex storage unit and establish the mail forwarding. And third, K. Ray, the payee for the fraudulent legal services billed to Mrs. Marchant's accounts." She slid a printout across the table. "Rafi's digital trace confirms that the IP address used to create all 3 aliases, the virtual cards, and the post office box, originates from the router Kendall Reeves herself installed in Mrs. Marchant's home." Mr. Verrill spoke next. He placed the blurry 8x10 photo from the Newport fundraiser on the table. Beside it, he placed a crystal-clear image, a social media photo he had found. It was a close-up of Kendall at a beach, raising a glass. "The woman in the Newport photo has a small, distinct tattoo on the inside of her left wrist," Verrill said, using a pen to circle it. "A small infinity symbol, as you can see from this second photograph. Mrs. Reeves has the identical mark." The mask was not just cracked, it was being meticulously peeled away. Next came the notary. Tasha presented a sworn affidavit from the Cumberland County Clerk's office. The notary commission of John P. Smith, number 7749, was reported stolen in March of 2023. She read aloud. "Furthermore, a state-certified handwriting analyst has concluded, with 99% certainty, that the signature of Sylvia Marchant on the quitclaim deed is a forgery. The signature of John P. Smith does not match any known, valid sample." Then, Tasha played the audio from the open house. The small, high-fidelity recorder had missed nothing. Kendall's voice, bright and confident, filled the silent room. "The owner is confused. She'll sign anything. We're looking for a quick, all-cash close." The lawyer from the DA's office just wrote in his notebook. He didn't look up. Dylan was in the room. This was his ordeal. He sat beside me, but a mile away, his face pale, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. The DA's lawyer finally looked at him. "Mr. Marchant, you are listed on the fraudulent deed. Can you explain how your name came to be on a forged document?" Dylan's voice was barely a whisper. Kendall. She brought me papers, a stack of them. She said it was just asset management, protecting the house from estate taxes. She said Mom wanted it, but was getting forgetful." He flinched, as if the words burned him. "I was busy. I was distracted by those crypto meetings she set up. I trusted her. I signed. I never read them." Tasha stepped in. "The court, based on this evidence, has already acted. A permanent asset protection order is in place. The fraudulent quitclaim deed has been voided. A high-priority alert has been attached to your property title. Mrs. Marchant. Nothing can be sold, borrowed against, or transferred without your explicit, court-verified presence. My house was safe. The DA's lawyer nodded. Kendall Reeves, or whatever her name is being held for questioning regarding multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and possession of stolen property. Given the evidence from the storage unit, federal charges are also on the table. He looked at me. Mrs. Marchant, what are you seeking, beyond the asset recovery? I looked at Tasha, then at Dylan, and then at the lawyer. I have a grandson, I said, my voice steady. His name is Eli. He is 7 years old. He is innocent in all of this. I have not mentioned, and I will not mention, anything that suggests he was ever in harm's way. My only request to the court, regarding my son's family, is that a clear, structured, and healthy visitation schedule be established for my grandson. I want him to be in a safe place, free from any pressure or manipulation. I did not say, with me. I did not say, away from her. I said, safe. Dylan made a small, broken sound. He raised his head. I will cooperate, he said to the lawyer. Completely. I have nothing to hide. You can have my phone, my laptop, my email passwords, whatever you need to prove I was a fool, not a criminal. He was telling the truth. As the meeting concluded, Mr. Verrill gave the final accounting. Amalgamated Underwriters, he said, will be filing a formal civil suit against Ms. Reeves. We are seeking full recovery of all stolen assets, estimated at over $200,000, plus punitive damages for the cost of this investigation. She is the focal point. And it all started, Mrs. Marchant, because you needed a battery. The night before the hearing, the house was silent. It was my silence, the one I had known before they came. Not the strained, hostile quiet Kendall had created. Dylan was staying at a motel. I was alone. And for the first time in months, I was not afraid. I sat in Frank's study. His old ledgers from his contracting business were still on the shelf. I ran my hand over their worn leather spines. Frank always said, Sylvia, the books must balance. It was his rule for business, my rule for accounting, and the principle we had built our life on. Every debit must have a credit. Every entry must be true. Kendall's presence in my life had been a massive, fraudulent entry, a number forced into a column where it did not belong. Tomorrow was the reconciliation. Tomorrow, the books would finally balance. A soft knock came at the door around 9 p.m. It was Dylan. He looked thin, exhausted, older than his 39 years. He did not step inside. He just stood in the doorway, his hands jammed into his pockets. Mum, he said, his voice thick. I'm not here to ask for anything, not forgiveness, not for you to go easy on her. I waited, my hands folded on the desk. I have to say it. I failed you, he said, and his voice broke. I let her in. I let her do this. I saw the mail forwarding. I saw the bills, and I chose not to see them. I was so desperate for her easy money that I let her convince me you were the enemy. You were in this house alone, being terrorized. And I was her partner. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I left you alone to fight this. He was not making excuses. He was not blaming her manipulation or the crypto schemes. He was taking responsibility. It was the first honest entry he had made in a year. I know. Dylan? I said. He nodded, wiped his eyes, and turned to leave. I'll see you in court. I sat with that for a long time. An hour later, my phone, resting on the desk blotter, vibrated. A text from a number I did not recognize. It contained only 8 words. Stop now if you don't want to lose everything. My blood did not run cold. It ran hot. I immediately took a screenshot and forwarded it to Maeve, Tasha, and Rafi. Maeve called within 10 minutes. Her voice was pure gravel. Burner phone. SIM card was activated an hour ago. But the ping? It just lit up the cell tower nearest the highway junction. The same junction where I logged the plates on that black SUV. They aren't just watching. Still, they're panicking. And they're stupid. Tasha called next, her voice the antidote to Maeve's gravel. Sylvia, this is good. It's intimidation. It's desperate. But listen to me. Tomorrow, in that hearing, Kendall's lawyer will try to paint you as hysterical, vindictive, a confused old woman. You will not give them that. You are not an angry mother-in-law. You are a bookkeeper. You will stick to the facts. You will not attack her. You will present the truth. Ledgers, not emotions. Do you understand? I understand, I said. The books must balance. My team had already laid the groundwork. Rafi had sent his final package, a beautiful, clean timeline of the evidence. It started with the timestamp on the jeweler's security camera. It linked to the rental agreement for the Kira Lane storage unit 2 days later. It connected to the date of the fraudulent notary stamp. It ended with the audio file of the open house. A perfect, unbreakable chain. Una had done her part, too. She had gathered 3 signed, handwritten letters from the concerned neighbours who had attended the open house, each one attesting they had seen Kendall carrying the sealed event boxes into the house on multiple occasions. And Dylan, Tasha told me, had already filed his own affidavit. It was a full admission of his financial negligence, a statement that he had been manipulated, and a legally binding, notarized promise to relinquish any and all claim to my property, now and in the future. He was balancing his own ledger, in his own way. I went to my closet and pulled out the small overnight bag I had packed weeks ago, the one that had been hidden at Una's. I unzipped it. Everything was there. The original, true deed to my house. Frank's name and mine. The paper thick and real. The certified copies of the bank statements. The official report from the state confirming the notary stamp was stolen. And the small, silver USB drive that Rafi had given me, containing a complete mirror of every audio file, every photograph, every text message. I had the originals. I had the copies. I had the backups. I was ready. I did not sleep. I watched the blackness of the night outside the study window turn to a damp, cold grey. The first mournful groan of the foghorn on Casco Bay echoed through the quiet streets. It was the sound of home. It was the sound of mourning. The hour of judgment had arrived. The Cumberland County Courthouse hearing room was functional, smelling of old varnish and weak coffee. I sat at one table with Tasha. Kendall sat at another, flanked by a new, expensive-looking lawyer. Dylan sat alone in the gallery, directly behind me, his hands clasped. Kendall's lawyer went first. He was smooth. He painted a picture of a complex family dynamic, of intermingled assets, and a daughter-in-law's earnest attempt to manage the estate for a forgetful elder. He concluded, "This is not a crime, Your Honour. This is a profound and unfortunate misunderstanding of assets." The Assistant District Attorney stood up. "Your Honour, We will demonstrate this was not a misunderstanding. It was a systematic, multi-state fraud. He started with the video from the open house. The screen in the quiet room flickered to life. Kendall's voice, bright and confident, filled the space. The owner is confused. She'll sign anything. We're looking for a quick, all-cash close. Kendall's lawyer sank a little in his chair. Mr. Verrill was called. He was all facts. We present the serial number of the watch, 92537. We present the serial number of the sapphire ring, recovered from Ms. Reeves at the open house. Both match the Newport theft. Case file 747B. He placed the photos of the sealed, stolen gift boxes from the Kira Lane storage unit on the projector. Next, a representative from the county clerk's office testified. The notary commission of John P. Smith was reported stolen in March of 2023. The signature on the quitclaim deed is not his, and the seal is a forgery. Kendall's lawyer was trying to object, calling it a domestic dispute, when the prosecutor held up a hand. Your Honor, we have one final piece of evidence, which just came in this morning from the Massachusetts State Police. He looked directly at Kendall. The man who fled the open house, the driver of the black SUV, was apprehended last night outside Boston. He has given a full statement. He confirms he was part of the Newport theft ring, and he has identified Kendall Reeves, also known as Kira Lane, as his primary inside contact, responsible for receiving and fencing the stolen event merchandise in Maine. A wave of silence hit the room. Kendall just stared, her face white. The misunderstanding was now a multi-state felony. Before the judge could speak, Dillon stood up from the gallery. Your Honor. His voice was shaky but clear. The judge looked at him. Mr. Marchant. I am her son, he said, glancing at me. I failed to protect my mother. I was financially negligent, and I was manipulated. I am not asking for leniency for anyone else. I am asking for the court to enact every possible protection for my mother and her property. And he took a deep breath. I am formally requesting that the court place me under mandatory financial supervision until it is satisfied I am no longer a risk to my family's assets. The judge looked at Dillon for a long moment. Then she looked at Kendall. Then at the mountain of evidence. She didn't need a recess. The ruling of this court is immediate and absolute, she said, her voice cutting through the room. The fraudulent quitclaim deed is void. 100% of the title, rights, and ownership of the property at 41 Seabreeze Lane belong to Sylvia Marchant. A permanent restraining order is granted. Kendall Reeves is barred from the property and from contacting Mrs. Marchant. She turned to Kendall. This court finds probable cause to bind you over for criminal trial. Based on the new evidence, you will be remanded to custody pending prosecution on charges of felony fraud, forgery, and receipt of stolen property. The judge softened her tone only once. Regarding the minor child, Eli Marchant, a temporary visitation schedule will be established through a court mediator. All visitations will be supervised. There will be no discussion of these events in front of the child. This court notes for the record, there is no history of child abuse or neglect in this file. As we filed out, Mr. Verrill stopped me in the hall. Amalgamated is announcing the full recovery of the Newport assets, he said, shaking my hand. It's a big win. And to think, it all started because you needed a battery. That evening, I returned to my quiet house. The Portside Realty sign was still on my lawn, a scar on the damp grass. I walked out, grabbed the metal frame, and ripped it from the earth. I went back to the study. I sat at Frank's desk. I took out my old, empty ledger book and opened it to the first clean page. I placed my sewing kit, the box of needles and thread, beside it. The house was mine. The accounts were secure. I took a deep breath. The ledger balances. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you are tuning in from, so please drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories and like this video. And if you really enjoyed this, please hit that hype button to help this story reach more listeners.